I'm Jake Hall, the Manufacturing Millennial, along with my co-host and host of the Manufacturing Hour podcast, Chris Luecke. And we're joined today with special guest, Dan Adams, who is the principal engineer at Hirebotics. Now, to kick things off, I mean, Hirebotics is a fun name, right? You know, when we're looking in the industry, we're having a hard time hiring people.
That's right.
And you guys kind of probably played with that a little bit with hiring robotics as a labor problem. Can you dive in a little bit about who Hirebotics is?
Yeah, so we got our start back in about 2015. Matt and Rob founded the company. We got our start kind of by being everything to everyone. So we would get requests from people all over the country. Couldn't find employees, so we would customize universal robotic solutions for them, set them up in their factory for them, and those robots would make $15 to $20 an hour.
Yeah.
And if those robots worked 36 hours that week, they would get paid 36 hours that week. So that's how we decided to kind of attack the labor shortage issues, was with robots, customized solutions paid by the hour.
Okay.
Companies changed quite a bit since then. About 5 years ago, we kind of standardized on a welding solution. Mm-hmm. A lot of our customers from the old days, right, had welding needs. They couldn't find employees to weld. It was really hard to retain those employees. And then, the fallback solution is robots, right?
Yeah.
But those are really difficult too. You have to find the right people to program those robots. So we decided, can we figure out a way to make a really, really simple, easy to use robotic welding solution? And that's what the company does now.
So this might seem like a basic question, but you mentioned you had a broad stroke initially, right? You were covering a bunch of different application areas. So how did you decide to focus specifically on welding out of all the other things you could have done?
Yeah, so we got approached by Airgas a number of years ago, one of the largest gas and wire distributors in the United States. They had all the data that I'm sure everyone else has seen at this point, right? That the average age of the welders in this country is like late 50s,
Yeah.
that they're going to be, depending on what estimates you look at, right? 500,000 welding open job requisitions out there as
Yeah.
well. And it's a really good application for a cobot as well. So between all that and then our kind of early push into the market, really positive feedback, and kind of decided that was our path.
Yeah, and it's a great path to go. I think the numbers right now is there's currently 550,000 welders in manufacturing.
I'm glad you know them better than I do.
Working in the U.S. right now, with the mean age of them being 55 years old.
Yeah.
So when you look at a rapidly aging workforce, and not only a workforce but a skilled trades workforce,
For sure.
a lot of manufacturers are going to be needing solutions, especially with a lot of times when you look at larger manufacturers. A lot of times they're doing larger batch runs, right? They're not just doing one-offs, standardized parts, where they can leverage traditional industrial robots for continued automation, making thousands and thousands of parts every single day.
That's right.
You're kind of filling that niche for the small to medium-sized builders who can't leverage a full automated work cell that's making 20,000 parts a week.
For sure, and it's really cool. I mean, we get, we have customers that have, it's literally one employee in one of our robots, right? We're also in shops that have thousands of employees, and often a lot of traditional robots as well. And for those folks, where we kind of fit in is for their maybe lower volume, higher mix kind of stuff. If they have a run of 200 parts, we've heard this from a number of our customers, they're not going to set it up on a traditional robot. It would take too long. They maybe have one or two people in their shop that actually know how to use those traditional robots. So what we're doing is basically allowing one of your skilled welders, empower that person to become a robot programmer, particularly for those higher mix, lower volume kind of parts.
So, because I was curious what the roles of, let's say, the people in the shop were at this point, because one thing you're filling the jobs that don't exist. So it's not like you're replacing a job, but I was curious about what those type of people are doing there. So since you've answered that, what would you say, can you share a specific example, a story that illustrates how your solution has worked?
Yeah, so it's typically the welder that's setting it up. right? The people who know their torch angles, know how to evaluate a good weld. They're the folks setting it up. But then what's really neat about robotics, right, is once that work is done, you save that program, it's set in stone. You can hire someone who maybe doesn't have any welding background at all. They can load and unload parts, and it's making those certified welders parts. So that's really neat. And, we have some customers who everyone's process is different, right? So sometimes it's a welder feeding the robots parts. They'll walk away. They'll go weld their own thing. Sometimes it's the guy, down the hall that's running the CNC. They'll come over and load and unload the robot. Sometimes it's an intern who's loading and unloading parts. So it really just kind of expands the amount of people that you can use that you already have, the people you already have. Kind of expand the amount of welding capacity you have with the same amount of people.
What would you say for a lot of first-time robot users? So a small to medium-sized shop who's never used a robot before.
That's right.
I'm sure they have a lot of apprehensions when it comes to installing a robot. What are some of the, I guess you could say, risks that they would identify to putting in a robot, and then how are you helping them overcome those risks?
Sure. Yeah, a lot of people are a little intimidated by robots, and rightfully so. A lot of those traditional ones where you're programming on a teach pendant, very difficult to figure out for a lot of folks, myself included, right? I'm not a robot programmer. But when we tell them that you're actually going to be programming this robot on your smartphone or an iPad or an Android tablet, really anything that gets internet, right, with our cloud app, they're pretty intrigued. And it's a device that they're comfortable with, right? If you can send a text message, you can program our robot. It's really that simple. We're handing these off to folks who often have no robotic programming experience at all. They open up our app, we give them a quick tutorial, and these are welders, right? These are not robot people a lot of the time. And they're figuring out how to use our system in about 20, 30 minutes. So it's really cool to see that.
Is there something that you've learned about the welding space, the robotic space? Maybe it's a combination of both. Something you've learned recently that has surprised you, whether it's about the challenges in the space, the opportunities in the space.
Yeah, and kind of a blend of the last two. I forgot to answer your last question, but so I was kind of surprised to learn, because you hear a lot of the, rightfully so, people being concerned about automation, taking jobs, all that kind of stuff. From what we've seen, that has never happened with the Hirebotics robot. These are going into factories that have open jobs. A lot of the employees at first are nervous. We bring these robots in, and they actually really like working with them, which was really neat for us to see, because we're not in the business of trying to remove people from the labor force, right? That's a huge problem in this country. So it's really neat to see the adoption from some of the people in the shop that actually really enjoy working with these robots, and kind of the realization that in order for their company to grow, to add more people, they'd need more robots as well.
So what would you say have some of the biggest innovations that you have done at Hirebotics, or your team has done at Hirebotics for the last couple of years, that's really bringing welding robotics to everyone in the industry?
Yeah.
Where you're lowering the entry gap to robotic solutions.
Yeah, sure. So our big thing is the app we developed. Like I said, you're programming on your smartphone, a tablet like an iPad or an Android tablet. And that's really our kind of secret sauce, right? There are a lot of robotic welding solutions where you're on those teach pendants. We're the only ones that have it on a mobile app. Makes it super easy to use, really easy to adopt for a lot of these customers.
So we're going to be back together at Automate in 2024 and 2025.
That's right.
What's your prediction for the industry 1 or 2 years down the line? Could be a big bet, could be a small bet. What do you think?
Yeah, so just being here this year, it's hard to walk for more than 20 seconds without seeing a welding torch on a collaborative robot, right? Mm-hmm. So it definitely seems like there's traction there, and enough companies believe that it's a good bet for the long term. So I'd expect to see that continue to grow. A lot of these shops where these welding cobots are in have a lot of other applications as well. So whether it's cutting, grinding. I think you'll kind of see, you hear a lot more about kind of the welding labor shortage, just because those are typically jobs, right? Welding requisitions, jobs. There typically aren't job titles that are like grinding or plasma cutting. So I think the focus to start with us and everyone else has been on welding. But I think you'll see some of the auxiliary activities around welding continue to grow as well.
So as we wrap up our discussion, what are some topics that you wish we could dive more into detail with the last few minutes? Or a question that you wish we would have asked you where you can share more solutions
I was leaving
about
that to you guys.
the robotics industry. Is there anything else that you want to share?
Yeah, so later this year we'll be launching a system with the UR20. So that'll be a longer reach arm than they have available now. So we currently use the UR10. It's got a 51-inch reach. The UR20 will have, I believe, a 69 or 70-inch reach. And that's probably the number one question we get from our customers is, hey, I've got really big parts. A lot of them will buy several of our robots to do those larger parts, but they want a different solution. So we're really excited to bring that to the market, probably later in Q3. It'll be the UR20 robot with the same easy-to-use, cloud-connected Beacon Hirebotics software on a much larger platform.
Since we're talking welding, and I feel like welding is an application where many times someone's getting started with robotics for the first time.
Sure.
Whether it's welding or any robotics application in general, what's your advice or call to action to someone that has been hesitant to leverage new technology? What's your advice to get them off of top dead center?
Yeah, I always start with focus on ease of use. We talk to a lot of folks that have bought robots in the past, either traditional or collaborative, and they're sitting there collecting dust because they don't know how to use them. You get talked into it. I'm not the first person selling robots that claims that they're easy to use, right? So really important to focus on ease of use, be able to expand the amount of people in your shop that are going to be able to use it. At a lot of these shows, right, we notice that a lot of collaborative robotic solutions, people walking the floor aren't the ones that are programming the robot. At Hirebotics, 100% of our booths at these kinds of shows, we hand the phone to the user, the person walking down the hall, say, hey, you program this. Here's a 5-minute tutorial, and they're programming a robot. So that's kind of how we approach things. We want to prove to you how easy it is to use, because we're not the only people saying that.
And I think ease of use is really what helps move the adoption of robotics forward, right? And I think when you look at it, younger kids, millennials and Gen Zs, they love the idea of being able to program stuff with their cell phone because it's a familiar device that they've already been playing with since they were a kid.
For sure.
And now programming a robot is no more than just playing, Happy Birds on, Flappy Birds.
Angry Birds?
Angry Birds.
You're not that old. How did you forget that?
Angry Birds on their cell phone.
That's right.
So Dan, thanks so much for your time today. Thanks for sharing a little bit more about what Hirebotics is doing, how you guys are helping solve the labor shortage in our industry, and moving things forward.
Where's the best spot to connect with you here at Automate and after the show?
Booth 507, and you can always reach out at hirebotics.com. And if you need an investor for Happy Birds, I hope you come here first.
All right. We'll see you guys soon.